What's up and welcome to the Cover 2 Recap. I'm BruinsSportsReport.com publisher Edward Lewis, and this is
OC Register UCLA beat writer Ryan Kartje.
And we're here coming at you from the Rose Bowl, where UCLA just beat New Mexico State 59-13.
Pounded New Mexico State, actually, I think is the right word.
And kind of a snoozer, kind of that was kind of a boring game, as boring as a 59-13 rout can be. Ryan, your first impressions, your initial instant analysis of the game?
Well, I fell asleep at halftime, so I think you're going to have to fill in the second half. But no, this game was over, by the end of the first quarter, and a lot of people were nitpicking, after the game. UCLA had a lot of, there were a lot of mistakes, they said, and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, as Brett Hundley would say, this was a 46-point win. They're 3-0. They put up almost 700 yards of offense on New Mexico State. I mean, on paper, that's outstanding. So, they have that to hang their hat on. 83 points unanswered since the second quarter of the Nebraska game. I mean, that's outstanding. We saw how high-powered this offense can be. Brett Hundley almost had 300 yards in 3 quarters, 3 touchdowns. Jordan James went over the 100-yard mark for the 3rd week in a row. All kinds of guys getting time, all kinds of guys contributing. But there was another side to this game, and I know that some of the nitpicking was warranted. And Ed, what really stood out to you as something that they need to improve on?
Well, that's kind of the biggest thing that I'll take away from this game is when Brett Hundley isn't Brett Hundley. How different does this team look? We saw it in the first half against Nebraska, where they were losing 21-3. We saw it in really the first quarter, really almost the entire game of Brett Hundley tonight, where he's just off, and the whole kind of team just feels off. I know the defense was still good and blah blah blah, but when he's not playing well like he was doing tonight, the old line was protecting him really nicely. He had a clean pocket for most of the night, yet he was stepping up and kind of putting himself under pressure, or he was missing open receivers and just dumping it off to the flats to Paul Perkins or Stephen Manfro. Just kind of a weird night for him, kind of an off night for him, and it really shows how much he means to this team. I know they put up 59 points and they won by 49 or whatever, and yada yada yada, but when he's off, it doesn't look pretty. So, that's kind of the number one thing I'll take away from the game.
And he had 2 interceptions in the red zone, 3 total turnovers in the red zone, which, everyone said afterwards was inexcusable. And those are mistakes that Brett Hundley cannot make during Pac-12 season. These are going to be games where each team is trying to outscore the other one, knowing how the Pac-12 has gone so far. So plays like that can really turn the tide. And, if this wasn't New Mexico State, maybe things were different. But UCLA's offense, I guess if you watch the tape of it, it didn't look that great, and they still won by 46 points.
Exactly.
So I think that says something. Personally, at this point, I don't think we'll really know what this offense has in store until 2 weeks from now when they face off against Utah at night on a Thursday night. But Brett Hundley's going to have to improve for sure. His rapport with his receivers just really wasn't there tonight. I know Devin Fuller, he probably looked his way the most. Devin Fuller probably should have had 3 touchdowns tonight, 100 yards, if it weren't for a few overthrows from Brett Hundley. So, if he gets in sync with his receivers again like he has been in the past, and his running backs are still finding holes like they were tonight. Like I said, Jordan James ended with over 165 yards on 19 carries. That's pretty impressive. If he can keep doing that, then this is going to be one of the more high-powered offenses in the Pac-12.
Other individual standouts included Anthony Barr, Miles Jack, Cassius Marsh.
Anthony Barr just with a few man-eating hits. He was in King Davis III's head all night, knocked him out of the game in a hit that I know Miles Jack said was one of the hardest he's ever seen on the field while he was on the field. So
they actually took King Davis's helmet and hit it because they were worried he would go back into the game and play after that hit he just took from Anthony Barr. So he was stellar. He got his first sack. He said he didn't really feel like he lost a monkey off his back. I tend to disagree. I think he was probably taking a little bit of it. Yeah, I think he was just playing a little coy. Miles Jack, though, is the guy that, last time we talked about Alex Redmond, guy that stood out, a young guy that stood out. Miles Jack, to me, and I know this isn't breaking any news here, but that guy is a stud. Barr had his hit, and then Jack came back out and made almost the equivalent of the hit on the backup quarterback. So he's going to be a standout player. He's already starting and deservedly so. He's a great football player.
My biggest standout on defense was Randall Goforth. I know this is, especially with the safeties, New Mexico State's run game was going pretty well in that first drive. I know I think they had 3 first downs without even running the ball. And you just saw Randall Goforth come up, especially after that, in run support and look outstanding. He led the team in tackles. A lot of those situations were one-on-one, where he just took the guy down immediately. I mean, he looked very poised in those one-on-one tackle situations. And I think that says a lot going forward. I mean, the secondary, they weren't challenged that much tonight. Ish Adams, his interception, which he returned for 52 yards, you or I probably could have made that interception. It fell right into his arms. But, when a guy like Randall Goforth comes out and has the type of disruptive game that he did, where, everyone's kind of recognizing him as one of the best players on the defense in this game, I think that's a good sign going forward for the secondary.
Now, big picture, obviously this win doesn't do a whole lot for you because it's New Mexico State, who may not win a football game this year. But big picture, does this change your opinion of UCLA, good or bad? Why? I mean, I think last time you had them at 9-3 or 8-4 after the Nevada game. What are you thinking now?
This literally changes my opinion 0.0% of this UCLA team. Obviously, I think I picked them to cover the spread by like 1 point. They did even a little bit better than that. Their biggest spread they've ever had in team history. This offense is still going to be high powered. This offense is still going to rely on Brett Hundley. The defense, maybe if anyone proved anything, I think the defense did. I think they did really well. There were some penalties. We didn't really talk about that even. There was a lot of penalties on both ends. That may be the most concerning thing going forward, because I think that did play a big part last year in them not being able to win the Pac-12. So at that point, penalties are probably the most concerning. I think the defense maybe improved a little bit in my standing. Offensively, who cares? This is one you put away, you forget about, and you move on to Utah. How about you?
Absolutely. Completely agree. Didn't really learn a whole lot that I didn't already know about this team. Other than a couple young guys, I figured out a little bit more or less. Guys like Priest Willis, it's kind of disappointed in his play tonight. He only played a quarter and was in garbage time, but he gave a big touchdown. Tom Goodman, he didn't get to play a whole lot. So kind of disappointed in those guys, but I mean, again, it's only the fourth quarter. But I really didn't learn a whole lot. So my prediction still stands as a high-powered offense, pretty good defense, still looking like 9-3, 10-2.
And it's hard to learn a lot when you sleep through that third.
Yeah, when you're taking a nap during a 59-13 route.
But hey, I'm well rested, so.
That'll wrap it up for us here at the Rose Bowl. As always, you can follow all my stuff on Twitter at EdwardLewisBSR and on BruinsSportsBoard.com. And as always, you can follow him on
at Ryan_Kartje on Twitter and OCRegister.com.
Till the next time, we'll see you on the Cover 2 recap.